What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Madden 21 video I have for you guys here today. Now, I'm finally back with the face cam. It's been a while. Honestly, I've just been lazy and really just didn't feel like plugging in my webcam. That's honestly all it is. I don't know why I'm like this. Also, I just woke up a little bit ago, so if my voice sounds a little bit weird and not like super warmed up yet, that's why. I just wanted to make sure I got a video out for today. But today's video is going to be another rebuild tips video, just like franchise tips in general, how to draft better, how to potentially trade better, how to do stuff like that. Now, I know I made a video like this already on Madden 21. This was a couple months ago. I don't remember exactly when I uploaded that video, but you guys seem to really enjoy that one. It seemed to help out a lot of people, and I've been getting like an influx of comments on that video recently, so I feel like people are searching up like rebuild tips or just like how to do rebuilds better. At least in the last few weeks or so, I feel like people have been searching that up a little bit more. I even got a couple comments on the rebuild tips video I made a year ago on Madden 20. So I figured it was a pretty good time to update my most recent one. I'm sure I'm going to overlap a lot in the tips because I still kind of use the same tips in that last video, but I might have a couple new insights to add to this video. But if you are watching and I don't answer a question that you have, or I don't go over something that you wanted me to go over, leave a comment down below and I can try to answer it that way, or maybe just go to the comments and see if somebody has already answered it down there. Now, I do read every comment. I know a lot of creators say that, but look at me, right? Would I lie to you? I wouldn't, okay? I read every comment. I might not respond to them all, but I do see every comment. So if you do comment down below with some kind of concern, I will see it, and I will most likely respond back to it. But we're going to start here from the main screen of the game. I just wanted to start here just to go over a couple of really brief things that I never really went over before. If you go over to manage rosters, you can update rosters just to make sure you have the most updated roster. There have been a couple times I've done that, and it actually downloaded something. I feel like normally Madden will update them automatically, but I think sometimes things mess up or something like that. Also, this is where I make all the trades from my roster videos. I don't know if I ever really said that, but you can go to like manage players, and let's say I want to trade Fletcher Cox to, it doesn't matter, to the Bears for Mitchell Trubisky. You can get any trade to go through. Okay, well, that's not a good example because they don't have enough quarterbacks. So let's do it for some random receiver. Dwayne Harris. You can get any trade to go through in this screen. It doesn't matter who you're trading, as long as the cap situation is okay, and as long as the teams have enough players at like the position they're losing, if that makes sense. I don't want to save this roster, so let me just update rosters again. That should bring me back to my recent roster. Let's go ahead and do that. Now we should be good. Now Fletcher Cox should be back on the Eagles. Another thing I want to talk about, if you want to download any kind of files, what you do is go to the Share and Manage Files tab, and then you can download community files. Now you can get a whole bunch of different kind of files. You can get draft classes, you can get rosters, you can get sliders, all this kind of stuff. This is Bengals draft class, the one that most people use, at least the one that I use. And let's just say I want to update this just to make sure I have the most updated version of his draft class. I think I do anyway. But you just click on it, click X, click A, whatever. Sometimes people transfer them over to Xbox, but regardless, you click X, you click download file, and then I already have it downloaded, so that's why this screen is coming up. But let's just like overwrite my file, sure. This happens a lot. There's some weird errors. I don't know if Bengal removed his draft class. I doubt he did. If I save it as a new file, I'm gonna name it Hi. Okay, so maybe, I doubt he actually deleted it. But stuff like this happens all the time with Madden. Yeah, it's really difficult to download files. Like, I don't know why they're so weird. It's like a 2022 draft class. Is this gonna work? Okay, well that one actually works. So I'll use this as an example. So what you would do then, in order to like get this draft class to go through, is you'd have to do something in the franchise you're playing, and I'll bring that up later. But that's just a quick way, just to show you how to download a draft class. You can download them in a different screen as well. I'll talk about that when the time comes too. But for now, that's what I usually do. And then let's just say I downloaded a roster. What you'd have to do then in order to like use the roster is you have to load it from here. So I'd hit one of these teams. These are the rosters I have. I have that rookie roster I made recently, and then an out of position. I think that's what that stands for. Out of, I didn't put the position, whatever, it doesn't matter. If I loaded one of those two rosters, I'd be able to actually use them in a franchise then. But now that that's over, let's go into the franchise. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, hit franchise, and I always advise using cloud franchises because they just make simulating a lot easier. So I always go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is hit use active roster on the cloud franchise. Now, if I would have loaded a roster just like a couple seconds ago, my active roster would be that loaded roster. So that's why you want to load it before you start your franchise. You can also use the real life roster. I'll show you what this does for a second. This is what I typically do for realistic rebuilds because you can then start it any week and everything will be accurate for the most part. If you start in the playoffs, I think the draft picks are weird. I don't know why that happens, but pretty much everything will be accurate as long as you start like week 17. I think the draft picks then are good, at least mostly good. So that's usually where I start for my realistic rebuilds, and then just force everything that happened afterwards. And also, if you want to use an offline franchise, you can use the preseason roster, which is like what the game came with pretty much. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and use active roster. Now, the team I choose for this really doesn't matter. I'm probably just going to choose the Eagles because they are my favorite team. But this is importing the roster I have downloaded, which is just the most recent Madden roster. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the Eagles, and then let me talk about these settings. So I change the same settings all the time. They're not all necessary, but if you want to know exactly how I do rebuilds, this is what I do. I turn coach firing off. I don't want to get fired after a season of me intentionally trying to tank. I could just retire my character and create a new one on the same team again, but I just don't feel like going through all that. Salary cap I keep on. Superstar abilities I do keep on as well. Injuries I turn off. Pre-existing injuries I turn off. Both of those just preference. I like doing rebuilds without injuries. If you want to do a more realistic rebuild, you definitely can go ahead and turn those on. I turn my minimum roster size off because in a couple rebuilds I trade away a lot of players, and I actually go under this 46 mark, and this allows me to do that. So that's why I have those off. Also, someone is snow blowing behind me. I apologize if you can hear that. It snowed a ton where I live, so that's for that. I also turn off development trait regression. This is kind of just like a personal preference kind of thing. I don't like this on because I feel like players go down in development trait like for no reason. You can have a really good season and a player will go down in development trait. I feel like players also go up in development trait way too easily at some specific positions, but I will always turn this off. It's kind of buggy. You can mess around with these things down here too, these sliders, but I just have it off for now. I don't really like how it works. Quarter length, I always put this to 15. I don't think that actually matters. I remember hearing it mattered a couple years ago, so I just still do it. Weekly training I have on auto, just to make sure I get, you know, the most experience each week out of my players. Scout college players, I'll keep this to manual for now, but as I progress through a rebuild, I will turn that to auto. Tutorial pop-ups, I turn off. Auto progress players, I turn on. So I turn tutorial pop-ups off, just because they're kind of annoying. I know how to play the game, and it saves a couple scouting points. I don't know if you're actually given those scouting points extra if you have this on, because when this is on, when you first go to scout, it'll make you scout the top prospect. So maybe you're just given those. I don't know. But anyway, I just turn it off. And then auto progress players, I used to have this off. I used to spend all the experience points at the end of the season, but recently I've turned it on just so the team can be as good as possible throughout the season. This will just progress the players each week automatically. Also, maximum users, I always turn this to 1. I don't think anyone's ever going to join because you'd have to guess this password and the name. That would be ridiculous. So I always just put this to 1. I mean, I guess when I'm streaming, it's nice to have it 1 so nobody can just join out of nowhere. And then these I've never actually messed with because I don't think those matter too much. But yeah, anyway, those are the settings I use. I get asked that a lot. This is exactly what I use for every single rebuild. So now we can go ahead with the coach. Typically, I'll use a custom coach, make some kind of joke in the name. I always go motivator. I'm just going to go Anthos Ambush for here because I'm not creative and I can't think of a joke at the moment. So that's normally what I'll do, and then I'll just, you know, change the name like I said. Starting point, if you want to do a fantasy draft, this is how you do that. You'd have to start from there. If you want to start from the regular season, you can do that, but I usually start from the preseason just because I like going over the team then. I like making some trades and signing some players before the season actually begins. But let's go ahead, start the season with the Eagles, and that loaded immediately. That's a combination of the fact that I'm playing on a PS5, this loads way faster than the PS4 did, and also that I'm using a cloud franchise. If you're not using a cloud franchise, it takes a long time to simulate. At least it used to. I don't know if it does anymore. Another thing I should talk about before I get into the trades are the experience sliders. So in order to access those, you're going to go over to options, down to sliders, and then XP sliders. I'm sure you guys all know that, but just in case. Now, for these, kind of also personal preference, I usually keep these around 150. I think I've been doing 145 recently, so I'll go ahead and do that now. So 145, it seems to be pretty good. I know people will make them different for each position. I never really went that much in depth with them, honestly. 145 to 150 for each position is pretty fair. There are definitely some positions that don't get the love they deserve. It also really depends on the development traits of the players you have. Like if you have a bunch of normal guys, even with like juiced experience sliders, they're really not going to develop too well unless they happen to go up in development trait at some point. But anyway, there we go. That's how I do these. This is a really small tip as well, but if you hit the D-pad over, like you can kind of see my controller here. If you hit the D-pad over and then you hit the triggers back and forth, it goes a lot faster. I don't know if you can really see me doing this, but I'm just hitting both triggers and it goes up way faster than if I don't hit the triggers. Oh, hold on. If I don't hit the triggers, this is how slow it goes. All right, it took a little while to get there, but if I hit the triggers, it can go pretty fast. So that's just a small tip that I do like subconsciously now. I just always hit the triggers whenever I'm hitting any kind of slider. I do that in like other games too where it doesn't work. I don't know. But those are the experience sliders. Very important because I don't think players progress well at the base experience sliders. But yeah, now I think we can start talking about trades. They're like one of the most important parts of a rebuild for sure. Let's just go into those very quickly. So the main tip I want to mention is like how to trade for a draft pick, because draft picks are very, very easy to acquire. I'm sure you guys know this if you've watched my videos recently, but if you haven't watched my videos like at all, they're very, very easy to get. So pretty much all you need is like 2 green interest players at most, and you can get pretty much any team's first round draft pick, like with Washington right here. This might not go through, but it'll be very close. Okay, it was really close to going through. So Alshon Jeffrey, Isaac Seumalo, and then I can probably throw in like a random running back, because running backs are pretty valuable in this game. And that's a first round draft pick. Didn't really give up all that much at all. Also, there's another tip kind of built into that one, but like running backs hold a lot of value for some reason in this game. Like you saw that Washington had yellow interest in Corey Clement. That happens with most teams with most running backs. If you have a running back like over a 70, most teams will have at least yellow interest, which is really good for just throwing guys into trades like this and then being able to get a first round selection. So we didn't really give up all that much, and we got a first round draft pick. Alshon Jeffrey is definitely a player I would have traded anyway on this team, because he's not very good anymore and he's very expensive. So we got a lot of value for Alshon Jeffrey. And then Isaac Seumalo would have just been a backup. Same thing with Corey Clement. So we traded 3 backups essentially for a first round selection. And you can do that with pretty much any player. Like I just said, if you just have like a player with green interest and then another player with green interest, you can probably get a first round draft pick, or at least get close to it. Like let's try this one, the Cardinals. We don't have 2 green interest players, but we do have a green and a yellow. That's still pretty close. I found another green interest player. It's Vinny Curry. So there we go. We got another first round selection. Getting rid of Marquise Goodwin, Zach Ertz, and Vinny Curry. Again, not really getting rid of all that much. Ertz and Curry are backups on this team right now. Marquise Goodwin is getting old. He's going to be regressing, so he's not really in the long term for this team. So we're getting rid of 3 players I wouldn't have kept anyway, and we're getting a first round selection back. That's pretty much the main idea when it comes to draft picks. You want to look for like 2 players who have green interest. Try that right away, because sometimes that will go through. You can also even sometimes get more than a first. You can get like a 5th or something, like a future 5th, future 6th, something like that. But I normally don't mess with that too much. I just go for the firsts. Again, that's just me being a little bit lazy. So there's the draft picks. Now for players, right? So this kind of just comes with experience, just knowing which players are pretty easy to get. Obviously, I don't even know all of them. There are so many players. But I have a good idea of a bunch of them. So let's just kind of talk about one position group in general. Guards are super, super easy to get. Deshaun Jackson has like no value though. All right, let me get somebody else. Let's try to get Quentin Nelson. So guards are super easy to get. Do they want Travis Fulgham? They don't. Sad. The best receiver of all time. You don't want him. That's upsetting. What about Alex Singleton? There we go. Green interest. Let's just see how close this gets. This is 1 green interest player, a 70 overall middle linebacker for a 95 overall left guard, and we're almost there. It's really, really easy to get guards. I'll throw in Boston Scott, and that's incredibly close to going through. And then we can probably just throw in some random player. I don't think they'll take a 30 overall. Maybe Joshua Perkins. There we go. We traded away a 70 overall, a 74 overall, and a 67 overall to get Quentin Nelson. One of the best players in this entire game is that easy to acquire. That's how it is for pretty much like every guard. Guards are incredibly easy to get. That's why you'll see me trade for guards a lot, specifically Quentin Nelson. I trade for Quentin Nelson all the time, and that's precisely why. Okay, so here's another player who's relatively easy to get for how good he actually is. Jamal Adams, right? I'm getting rid of Nickel Roby-Coleman, Javon Hargrave, and Brandon Graham to get him. Now I'm getting rid of some starters, but these guys are all pretty old as well. They would have been off the team in a little while anyway. And Jamal Adams is a superstar X Factor, still young, and he's a 90 overall. Usually, when it comes to players like that, like his stature, they're really hard to get. But I guess maybe strong safety isn't too valuable in this game or something like that. But Jamal Adams is definitely worth getting if you're trying to build like a really good defense for the future, and if you don't mind getting rid of a couple players who may be high overalls, but you don't have to get rid of the younger guys who have a chance to develop. You can always go ahead and trade the players who are over like 27, because teams still value them for sure. So it takes about like 3 green interest players around like an 80 overall, and you can get Jamal Adams. Maybe you can throw in a draft pick as well if you wanted to save one of these players, maybe like a first or a second or something, depending on the value that you have. But yeah, Jamal Adams is very easy to get. Now here's another player I was very surprised to find out is super easy to trade for. Right, so we're getting rid of Avonte Maddox. Let me point this out first. He's actually pretty valuable, at least to me. If I were rebuilding the Eagles, I would certainly not get rid of him because he's young and already a 77. But let's just imagine he's just like a random 77 overall player who might not be super, super old. So maybe somebody you do want to trade. But we're getting back Julio Jones, One of the best receivers in this entire game. He is old, that's for sure, but I've traded for him a couple times, and he stays above a 90 for like 3 or 4 seasons, so you get a lot of value out of Julio Jones. Then we're also getting rid of a backup caliber outside linebacker and a backup defensive tackle. And we're getting a 95 overall player. Julio Jones is another really good player to go after, especially if you really badly need a receiver. Okay, so another really important thing to note while trading is that running backs are very important to your team and how well your team plays. One of my favorite running backs to trade for is Saquon Barkley. He's not hard to get really at all. We're getting rid of 270 overall players. I mean, one of them is Carson Wentz, so, you know, he's a quarterback, a lot of value there. And the other one's a left tackle, also a good bit of value. But still, 70 overall players and a 3rd round draft pick for a player who's going to be like a 96 or something after a couple seasons. Saquon Barkley plays really well. He actually usually goes up to a 99, but his floor is probably like a 95, 96 overall. He is insane, and he definitely elevates your team in general if you just have him on the roster. A good running back tends to do that in this game. Also, on the flip side, a bad running back usually will bring down the rest of the roster. Like, if I would have started Miles Sanders, I'm sure the team wouldn't have played well. The team might not still play well with Saquon, right? It's not like a definitive thing. But with Miles Sanders, there's a much higher chance the team would have played really badly, and he just would not have developed super well. I would have had to like really try to develop him. Maybe there's a couple playbooks out there that makes running backs develop better than others. I don't know exactly, but I'll get into playbooks in a little bit as well. Just really quickly, Saquon Barkley, really easy to trade for. A couple other running backs aren't hard to trade for either. Like Nick Chubb isn't super hard to trade for. Just considering he's a 96 overall. He's not like super easy to get either, but he's worth it for sure if you can get a trade to go through with him. He's one of my other favorite running backs to go out and trade for, but Saquon's definitely at the top of the list. I really like getting Saquon Barkley. Josh Jacobs also isn't too bad either. I've gotten him a couple times. He's also super good, super young. He's a good player to go out and trade for as well. I think those are all the players I'm going to go out and trade for and just show that they are easy to get. Now, there are a bunch of others, of course, but I don't want to spend too much time trading for different players. I just hope that you guys were able to get like the idea of who to kind of go out and target. Like guards, any guard essentially is pretty easy to get. And then also moving around a guard works really well in Madden. So if I moved Quentin Nelson to left tackle, his overall really wouldn't change that much, and he'd be one of the best left tackles in the entire NFL. That's usually why I will go out and trade for a bunch of guards. He only dropped 2 overall points, so that's fine. He's a 93 left tackle, and we got that for pretty much nothing. Also, running backs are fairly easy to trade for, but at the same time also hold a good bit of value when you're trading running backs away. That's kind of a weird situation, but that's just kind of how it is in this game. And then another one, Jamal Adams, super easy to get for how good he actually is. A couple defensive tackles are pretty easy to get, like Grady Jarrett isn't super difficult. He's just the first one that came to mind. I've noticed that edge is notoriously pretty hard to trade for. I don't know exactly why that is, but I don't normally trade for edge rushers. I usually try to draft them or sign in free agency, something like that. Same thing with corners. I guess aside from J.C. Jackson, J.C. Jackson's a pretty good corner to go out and trade for. He's not too hard to get. He's also young and already pretty good. Linebackers I normally don't trade for just because linebackers progress super well in Madden as it is. So I'll normally just wait and draft one, or just sign some young guy in free agency or something like that. Or even just like keep younger players on the team. Like I could probably keep TJ Edwards this whole time. Same thing with Davion Taylor. They're both young enough where they'd probably develop really well if they just both started. But yeah, definitely reference the comments if you want to know of some more players who are easy to trade for, because I'm sure a bunch of people will leave comments of players who are easy to acquire. The next thing we're going to talk about are the schemes and the playbooks. Now, when it comes to schemes, what I normally do is just go with the highest scheme fit percentage, or if I have like a rookie quarterback, I'll make sure the scheme fits are the same of the quarterback and like the scheme I'm running, because if a player fits the scheme of your offense or your defense, they will get more experience and progress better. So that's why if you have like a rookie or some other player who's young and has a good development trait or something, if you're just trying to develop a player, it's good to try to get them to fit this scheme, whether that be with like manually upgrading them or just changing the scheme to fit them. So normally I'll just go with the highest scheme fit percentage. I normally don't touch this too much. I find that on defense, if I'm running a 4-3, a 4-6 defense usually does really well with this scheme fit percentage. I've had this at 100 several times, just straight off the rip, without even really trying. So it's pretty easy to get a good defensive scheme fit percentage. And then also if I'm running like a 3-4, I don't know. I don't really have a specific one I go to. I kind of just go to the one with the highest percentage. I've heard that 3-4 Storm's a pretty good scheme. Honestly, don't even really notice the scheme affecting how well the team plays. It might, but I just haven't really noticed it. But what I have noticed is that the playbooks make a massive difference in how well your team plays, which I don't like at all. but they are very, very important in simulation. So for the offensive playbook, I will almost always use the Titans. The Titans have a really good offensive playbook. There's a couple other teams out there that have good playbooks. I know the Bears have a good playbook. The Saints and the Patriots at least used to have good playbooks. Same thing with the Cowboys and the Steelers. Don't know if they still do. I don't use them very often at all. But the Titans I use all the time. The Titans have a really, really good playbook. And then defensively, if I'm going for a 4-3 defense, I will most likely choose Cleveland. I've heard that Cincinnati also has a good playbook right there, but I'll usually choose Cleveland. I feel like the edge rushers get a lot of pressure and get a lot of sacks in this kind of playbook, and that's usually what I look for on defense. If I'm running a 3-4 defense, I don't know, like the Packers maybe. The Packers don't have a bad playbook. The Broncos potentially. But I've heard that the Giants with that 3-4 storm is a pretty good combination. So if you guys want to try that out, definitely go ahead. Now this is definitely one of the most important pieces to like your player progression and whatnot. Going to your specialist tab and changing all of these around. Super, super important tip. It's a very basic one, but it makes a huge difference. So these players see the field a lot. Specifically one, but I'll talk about that in a second. But these players see the field a ton. So my slot cornerback, if I'm trying to develop a specific player, I probably would have Avonte Maddox here because I wouldn't have traded him. But for now, it'll be Crayvon LeBlanc. That's fine. Sub linebacker, you're definitely going to want your younger linebackers here. As long as they're like not edge rushing linebackers. I got a comment referring to that at some point. Personally, I thought it was pretty clear that I meant like 4-3 linebackers or like middle linebackers. That's usually who you want to have playing here. These guys aren't going to pass rush, even though you probably could have like a rookie pass rushing outside linebacker play here and just get a ton of tackles and go up in development that way. So it is actually a pretty valid option. But for now, I usually just throw in middle linebackers or 4-3 outside linebackers in this position here. At rush defensive tackle, again, you're going to want like your number 1 D tackle, maybe your number 1 just interior D lineman in general to be here. So if you have a 3-4 defense and you have a really good left or right end, you might want them above your defensive tackle. Kind of just depends, but just your best interior D lineman, I'd put in the top 2 positions here. Rush right end, usually we'll just have, I don't know, the best right end I have on the team, best right outside linebacker if it's a 3-4. So in this case, Derek Barnett, he could probably be rush defensive tackle if I wanted him to be, but I guess in this sense, I probably have him rushing off the edge. And then a rush left end, I'd change his position, but I'd have like Josh Sweat over here or something like that. Again, you just want another edge rusher on this side. You could probably get away with having like Fletcher Cox over here. I doubt he'd be bad. I'd have to change him to a defensive end, I think, first, but I doubt he would be bad over here. He'd probably get a lot of pressure and whatnot, but I just like having him at the defensive tackle position. Now, honestly, the most important one to me is the slot receiver. The slot receiver gets so many targets, and I don't know why, especially if you pair it with the Titans playbook. They just go off. This is why it's so easy for me to develop receivers. In this case, I'm going to have Jalen Reagor be the slot receiver. I'll kind of use him as an example because, you know, he's a rookie, hidden development trait, already not bad. He has a ton of potential, and we're definitely going to have him be the slot receiver, and he's probably going to go off. He might have the most yards on the team, maybe most touchdowns as well. For the running backs, I just kind of put the best one I have. So like in this case, Saquon Barkley is the best power back on the team. He's also the best third down running back on the team. I found that if you put like a backup as the power back, they will mooch a lot of touchdowns from the starter and end up with like usually more touchdowns than your starting running back, which I don't like too much. So I like having these both the same, just so I get like one bell cow running back just to get a ton of production. So that's pretty much all I do whenever I go ahead and mess with the team building portion of the first season. So we can go ahead and advance now. Also in the preseason, you get different mentorships. It can be like a quarterback mentorship, an offensive line, a receiver one. Usually I go ahead and advance by these weeks one by one just to make sure I use all these because you get some decent upgrades. So for Andre Dillard, let's just go pass blocking, I guess. He's not starting currently, but it doesn't really matter. Let's go to that and then go to like finesse pass blocking. Doesn't really matter as well, just to get something up, get him just to be a better offensive lineman in general. And then if you advance one more week, Jason Kelsey's going to want to talk to me again, and he will get his awareness up by 3, which usually will do pretty well for his overall. And then again, we have this wide receiver mentorship. I feel like this one glitches out sometimes, though. Let's see if this one's actually going to work. He's talking about Travis Fulgham, and this is actually going to bring up this prompt. Sometimes this doesn't come up, and he's just like, yeah, I want to mentor this guy, and that's it. That's all he says. I don't know. I'm going to go into catching in traffic for this. That's typically what I go into. This one isn't too big. It just gets up a small upgrade to, you know, catching traffic. It's not massive. Now, another very important thing to do before you actually get into the season is make sure you manually cut your players, because there have been several times for me where I've simulated by this, and a starter gets cut or somebody gets cut and just disappears forever. I don't know why that happens. So just make sure you go through and manually cut all of your players that you need to, get off this team. So there we go. We cut 3 and we're good to simulate to week 1. Also, when I'm here, I will always double check to make sure the team is where I want it to be and the specialist is where I want it to be. Like one small thing I see here. Also, Jalen Reagor doesn't have hidden anymore. I didn't know that, but one small thing I see here. I'm going to put Jalen Reagor as the number 2 receiver, because I want him playing as much as possible. With him being in that slot as well, he's going to get a ton of targets. But I think everything should be good for this season. Of course, the record doesn't matter itself. I wasn't actually trying to, rebuild this team. But the most important thing here, honestly, is just looking at specialist, just to make sure you have all the guys in you want. So I kind of messed this up. I didn't change this for some reason, but I definitely want Davion Taylor and TJ Edwards being the sub linebackers. So that is for sure. Now we are good to simulate. And I will go to the scouting portion. All right, so here at week 3, this is the first time you can scout. Let's head over to the news section, go to draft stories, and sometimes there will be a story about a player. Now this time it's Mike Blackburn. Apparently he's the son of a legendary sprinter. Okay. Now that has a really good chance of giving the player a hidden development trait. Personally, I don't know if it guarantees it, because I swear I remember drafting a couple players who had those draft stories and then they ended up with normal. But recently, they've all had hidden that I've checked. So they're definitely a good player to go after, because there's a good chance they're going to have a hidden development trait. Now, once you click scout players for the first time, it brings you to this screen where you can choose a draft class. You can have the auto-generated draft class, which would have that Blackburn guy in it. You can download from the Madden share. Now, what this does is brings you back to the community files tab. So if you don't want to go and do it through like the main screen of the game, you can do it here. But if you do it through the main screen of the game, you don't have to do it again, because you can just hit the last option, which was import local file, which is right here. And let's just say you messed up and you accidentally imported a file you didn't want. If you just hit the left stick, it'll bring you back to this screen again. And then there you can potentially hit import local file, which is what I always do, because this just imports a file on your game already. You can see the 2022 draft class I downloaded, and then also there's Bengals draft class, the one I typically use. But for this video, I'm going to use an auto-generated draft class, which is this one right here. But once again, just knowing this left stick, that's pretty important. If you want to change the draft class or just edit anybody in the draft class or anything like that for whatever reason, you can do that all right there. Well, let's just take a look at this cornerback really quickly. Mike Blackburn. Late first round talent, pretty decent looking player. I'll get more into what all that means later down the line, probably during the off-season weeks. But let's just simulate for now. We can go to the mid-season. This is typically what I do in my rebuilds. I'll go ahead and sign some players back to the team, do all that fun stuff. That's not a super exciting part of a rebuild, but I guess I can talk about it. So let's just go over these player negotiations. There's not even really anybody here I'd want to bring back. Also, do the Eagles even have money for this? Oh, they do, actually. I cleared up enough cap, I guess. But, usually when I just go through and bring back some players, if it's a player I really, really want back on the team, I will usually raise the salary a decent bit and then try to sign them back. In this case, Travis Fulgham did accept. But if it's a player who, I'm kind of on the fence about bringing back to the team, I will usually just go ahead and just try to give him this base contract. I can't do this with anybody else, but I'll go through and try to give him the base contract. I feel like very seldom is that accepted. It seems pretty rare, but it does happen on occasion. So if you just want to try to save some money, you can do that. But I feel like if you lower the salary or the signing bonus, they almost always reject. There's probably some instances where they don't. I guess you can try it if it's a player you really don't care about. And, if they're on the team, it's whatever. You can always try it, I guess. But there's just a little quick synopsis of bringing back players. It's not my favorite part of rebuilds, gotta be honest. Now, this is incredibly important. So we're at week 15 now. Don't pay attention to the record. It doesn't really matter. But we are at week 15. This is when the Heisman winner will be announced, if there is a Heisman winner. So you go to draft stories again. We have a running back. Zach Burke is named the Heisman. This is normally a defensive player, which is nuts if you actually think about it. But this player will have hidden. I don't think I've ever drafted or seen a Heisman player with normal. This player should have hidden development trait, and if they're a good player, I feel like there's a really good chance they have at least superstar. So we have Zach Burke, who looks phenomenal. Really, really good looking player. But usually by this time, you can have a good bit of information on at least 2 or 3 players. Now, at week 3, there's a chance that 2 players will be mentioned and have a draft story about them. And then the Heisman winner, of course, is only 1. So I think you can have a max 3 here. There's also a couple other draft stories that happen throughout the season. Those don't really impact development trait too much. It kind of just talks about players who are rising and falling and stuff like that. I think that probably impacts their overall and how they're doing throughout the course of the college season, the fictional college season, whatever. But the Heisman winner is super, super important. Definitely pay attention to that. Mainly because hidden development traits are hard to get in this game in general. So getting a guaranteed guy with hidden is a massive advantage. Also, that whole week 3 draft story thing, another pretty solid advantage. If you can increase your chances of getting a hidden, definitely do that. I'm just going to quickly go over these stats just to show you what Jalen Reagor did, mainly. Also, Jalen Hurts had a lot of yards. Okay. Saquon Barkley should have had a pretty good season. He definitely did. A good player to go out and trade for again. And then Jalen Reagor went off. I figured he would. 100 catches, 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's going to go up in development trait most likely, just because he's playing in the slot. He wasn't even that high of an overall. What is he up to now? He's up to an 80. That'll definitely change a lot in the future, but as long as you have just like a young receiver in the slot, they're gonna do well. It almost doesn't even matter what their overall is. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. But let's just head straight to the Super Bowl here. Normally don't do too much more with this portion here. You can scout again at the Super Bowl. I'm not gonna go ahead and do that, but this is usually where I will go and scout. We can advance by the Super Bowl. And then you can see development trait upgrades, all that good stuff. Let's just see if Jalen Reagor did go up in development trait. He probably did, and he did. That's nice to see. So did Jalen Hurts. So this first season would have actually been off to a pretty good start. And like I said earlier, TJ Edwards is developing pretty well. He's up to star development. And this will probably go up a lot more just because outside linebackers progress super, super well in this game. They go up in development trait way too easily, that's for sure. Davion Taylor didn't go up, but there's definitely still a chance for that to happen in the next couple seasons. So we're not going to have any money to bring back free agents, that's for sure. But let's just go ahead and see who is available. I'll give a quick summary of what I do in this situation. So let's just say I really wanted JC Jackson on the team, right? I probably would really want JC Jackson on the team. I can't afford him. But I would typically go a good bit over the Bengals. Now, you used to be able to see the points that the Bengals were offering, and I typically go at least 10 above that. You can't see the points anymore, but just go a good chunk over the Bengals. If you just like kind of want the player, then you can either try to match the team or just barely go over them, but I would definitely go a good bit above, just because like teams swoop in at the final moment all the time to try to steal players. So just giving them a good strong contract is certainly worth it if it's a player who's going to be on your team for a long time. So I'm not going to really touch on free agency much more than that, but now we get to the most fun part of any rebuild, in my opinion, which is drafting. I love drafting a lot. So now we can see the combine grades. Super important stat to know about your prospects. Typically, if a player has over a 7 combine grade, they're going to be good. Like Alex Colvin looks absurdly good. Mike Hannon, probably a pretty good looking player as well. Not great. I'll explain why I know that in a second. Jonathan Thomas, another really good looking player. So over a 7 combine grade is pretty important. Also, if they skip the combine, I feel like there's a pretty decent chance they're going to have hidden development trait as well. So be on the lookout for that. But let me just break down the draft a little bit more, right? So you can pretty much know if you're getting a good player with any selection you have in the draft. It's pretty cheesy, but it's just valuable information to know. This all stems from that talent down there. If it says early first round talent, that means the player is going to be one of the top 10 like best players in the class. If it said like mid first round talent, they'd be somewhere between like 10 to 20, something like that. And if it said late first round talent, they would be somewhere between like 21 and 32, something like that. And that pretty much scales for every round, right? So you can kind of figure out if you're getting a good value when you're selecting. You can always get a good pick, pretty much, unless you don't have players scouted. But if you have all the players scouted you'd ever want, you could always make sure you're getting a good pick. It might say you reached, like, let's say this guy's ranked like 7th, and I took him at number 1. It would definitely say I reached in that instance, but it's still not a bad selection. I guess I could have traded back potentially, but, you know, whatever. Not a bad selection. Now, that top one, the projection is when he's probably going to go. So if a player has early first round projection, they're probably going to go in the top 10 picks. This guy looks really good, probably even more than that, probably like the top 5 picks. That guy looks really, really good. So you'd have to take him super, super early. This causes a lot of reaches though, right? The projection causes a lot of reaches. So for example, this guy, Mike Hannon, early first round projection, but mid first round talent. This means he's going to go within the top 10, but he's ranked outside of the top 10. So pretty much whenever you select this guy, when he's supposed to go, it's going to be a reach. But that could pose to work out if he has a good draft story about him, so he could still be worth it to select. But that's just a really, really quick way of determining if your players are good or not. All right, so we got a guy who skipped the combine. That's nice to see. Early first round talent, early first round talent. There has to be somebody who's not early here. Oh, this defensive tackle class is so good. These guys are all early first round talents. These guys are literally all early. What? How is that possible? I was going to compare these guys together. Jesus, that class is absurd. But I guess if I needed to take one of these guys, I'd probably take the dude who skipped the combine. I'm not going to bother trading up because there are so many early first round talent players I can end up selecting. We pick at number 4. Okay, so Chip Perry just went. He's a 73. Pretty sure he had late first round talent, so that makes a lot of sense. So with this selection, let's take a guy who's supposed to go early first round. So here's the Heisman winner. He's supposed to go early first round. He's going to be a really good player, and he should have hidden. He has hidden development trait, ranked number 8, so he's in the top 10. And like I just said, the hidden development trait. This is probably better than star. Doesn't have to be. I've seen the Heisman winner with star a bunch of times. But if I had to guess, I think this guy would have higher than star development trait. He's a good-looking player. Obviously, we don't need a running back, but just wanted to point him out. Hopefully, I can land one of those defensive tackles. I'm sure I'll be able to. We can get Tim Giffey. Okay, cool. Let's check out the other defensive tackles. So these guys are all going to be good. I'll show the draft class at the end. These guys are all going to be insanely good. But Tim Giffey, I'm going to take him just because he skipped the combine. There's a chance he'll have hidden. I think it's at least a higher chance than the rest of these guys. He doesn't have hidden, but it's okay. Still ranked at number 6, so he's in the top 10 once again. He's a really good looking player. I feel like you couldn't have really went wrong with any of those defensive tackles. Now, I'm going to exploit the trade system once again if I even can. I probably can. I'll just have to get rid of some player. But I just want to show you how easy it is to trade up in drafts. Let me just see if I can get this 49ers draft pick without getting rid of my other first rounder. Okay, so it's insanely easy to trade up in drafts. All you really need is to give a team a first or a second round draft pick and then a green interest player. And then you can pretty much trade up to wherever you want. You can probably trade up to like pick number 1 with the same kind of idea. For some reason, players just have like a ton of value in the draft. I don't really get that at all. But yeah, so Miles Sanders had great interest with the 49ers. I'm giving away our second round pick, and then I needed Huntley just to make the trade go through for cap reasons, but it probably would have went through without Huntley. So just letting you know, it is insanely easy to trade up in the draft. And then I think I might take these 2 middle linebackers. I just want to show you that Bruce is probably better, or at least the same as Irwin. You get a lot of information from scouting. You get way more than you probably should. So let me just go ahead and do that. These guys, of course, are going to be huge reaches, but I just want to show you this whole relationship. So Danny Bruce is a 72 overall, right? 90 speed, actually really good. And then the other guy, let's see what he's all about. He's going to be at most a 72. He's a 69, so I was right? You can tell all this just by their talent. It's really cheesy, but it's very useful. Something I didn't point out as well, if you have the first overall pick, you can trade that away for a lot of value as well. You can usually get like another selection in the top 5, then that team's like second rounder and maybe their first rounder the following season as well. You might have to throw in a player or another draft pick or something, but you can usually get around that much value for the first overall selection. That's definitely worth noting. But let's go over this draft. I just want to show you that these defensive tackles are going to be all over the top 10. I will also show what Zach Britt's development trait is, because he might have higher than star. I feel like he has a good chance of it. Let's see though. He is superstar. Okay, so I was kind of right in that sense. Usually like the early first round talent Heisman winners, I feel like they have a better chance of having a superstar or better. But let's go ahead and check out the rest of the draft class. Let me just show you the defensive tackles and how insane they are. This right end is actually the best in the class. Okay, so there's one defensive tackle. There's another one, another one, another one, another one. These guys are all insane. Those defensive tackles were way too good, man. I think those are all of them. But those guys are just lining the top 10. Knew that was going to happen. This right end also had early first round talent. Jonathan Thomas also had early first round talent. So I knew all of these players were going to be super good. It's way too much information to know. So if you don't want to exactly know, you don't have to look at it. You can just like scout the players and try to look at their combine and try not to look at their talent level. I guess that's just if you want to make it a bit more of a challenge for yourself. It was Mike Blackburn. Let's see if he has hidden. He does have hidden. Okay, so this was the man who had the draft story about him at week 3. I don't think this guarantees a specific development trait. Like, I don't think he's going to have more than star just because there was a story about him. He very well could. He does have superstar. That's pretty cool. But I've definitely seen players like that have only star development in the past. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for this video. I try to get a lot of information in this one. Hopefully I answered a lot of your questions. If you have any other questions, like I said at the beginning of the video, be sure to leave them down below in the comment section. Either me or some other viewer will answer them for sure. they will get answered. I'm almost certain of that, unless it's a question that somehow nobody knows the answer to, but I'm sure they will get answered. Also, if you ended up, you know, enjoying this video, if you learned something from it, be sure to hit that like button down below. You don't have to, but, you know, it would help me out a lot in the end. Also, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed. You can always unsubscribe later if you end up not liking me in the future. But thank you so much for watching one final time, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.